Spark. Okay. So this is introduction to Spark. So why Spark? Why not Hadoop? The biggest problem we have with Hadoop is after every map and reduce. So if you see this map and reduce job, right? So after the map reduces or a map completes, all the results that you have processed in memory will now go back to disk. And then the next stage, which is the reducer, kicks in, and now again you're reading it back from the disk and again processing it. So there is a lot of disk IO that is needed in the MapReduce program. So the amount of time that it takes is a lot more because you're reading everything into memory, you're processing it, and again putting back to disk. Reading from memory, again putting back to disk. So that became very inefficient when you're running huge jobs, and that's why Spark has come into action. They have done lots of improvements to the running of the job so that it is much more efficient. One is everything is computed in memory. Everything is distributed using the RDDs, which is a resilient distributed data sets. People don't write RDDs anymore. People just use data frames. But the first, like in the initial versions of Spark, people used to instantiate RDDs and do all, everything in RDDs. But as Spark has evolved, now everything is data frames and processed in data frames. So I will explain RDDs at a high level, but I'll stick to data frames because that's how you actually code in Spark. But under the covers, the data frames use RDDs. So it's not that RDDs have disappeared or something like that, but under the covers, RDDs are still there, but the interface that everybody uses is data frames. So again, Spark is not a modified version of Hadoop. It's actually a better version of Hadoop. That's what he's trying to say. And it's an in-memory cluster. It's an in-memory cluster computing program. So I started using Spark in 2012. So I started with Spark 1.4 or 1.3, I think. So I don't remember the exact version. 2012, 2013 is when I started using Spark, because I felt Spark was much easier to install, much easier to process than the entire big data like Hadoop and the name nodes and the HDFS, which is a lot of stuff to do. So then different ways of building Spark on Hadoop. This is Spark on Hadoop, but you can actually use Spark without Hadoop too, which is what we've done. We used Spark directly on S3, which is an Amazon file system, and we used Mesos. So I've used Yarn, I've used Mesos, but Mesos is much more lightweight than Yarn. So I've used Spark, Mesos, and S3. That was my stack. But I'll explain you what is this stack that he's trying to talk about. Yeah, one of the features of Spark are it's fast. It's 10 times faster because you've cut the disk like a lot. The next one is it's multi-language. So Spark is originally written in Scala. So you can write in Java, Scala, or Python. So you can write in a lot more. It has a lot more functionality which you can use. There is a lot of Spark SQLs. You can do a lot of things. And the way Spark processes is not map. It's very close to map and reduce but it's not map and reduce. It's called maps and actions and all that. I'll go into the depths of that and how do you do streaming, how do you do Spark ML, graphs, all that stuff. I'll explain to you in the later sessions. So this is the simple standalone version. You can run Spark directly on top of HDFS with the local Spark executor, like with the local Spark cluster, wherein the Spark what is it called, the master takes care of all the workers. Or you can actually run it using Yarn and Mesos, where Mesos is your resource scheduler or Yarn is your resource scheduler or resource manager. And this, I've never done it, Spark MapReduce and HDFS. This is something I don't even know. This is where I've started off from, 2.x and standalone Yarn. So the many parts of Spark that are available. Spark SQL is the most famous. Like now everybody just uses Spark SQL, which is because it's much easier. It's structured. It's much easier to process. Nobody usually writes Spark code like writing RDDs and all that. Nobody does that. They just use Spark SQL at the top of it. The next one is Spark Streaming. So Spark Streaming is if you have real-time data and you want to process the data in real time. It's not really real-time because there's still micro batching behind the scenes, but it's actually processing your data, real-time data, and actually giving you results. That's called Spark Streaming. The beauty of Spark here is whether you're using Spark SQL, which is a batch program, or the Spark Streaming, which is real-time, you have something called structured streaming. So you can write the same program for batch and streaming, and you can make it work for both of them. So that's why it's much more efficient in a way. So you're not writing something specific for streaming for batch. You can write one and it works for both. And MLib is the machine learning program. So how do you distribute your machine learning program across multiple systems? One of the easiest ways of doing it is using Spark. If you look into the depths of machine learning, the problem with typical machine learning is when you're running all these algorithms, it's usually tend to be on single server. So you actually run pandas on top of single server and you process them. That's a lot of overhead because you need these gigantic boxes with TPUs and GPUs and all that. Instead of that, you can use Spark MLib and distribute your load across machines. Graphics is the graphical it's the graph processing. I'll get into the details of graph processing and how do you do graph processing inside Spark. So yeah, I don't know how many of you have actually looked at Apache Mahout. Mahout is like one of the machine learning libraries of Hadoop. I've actually worked on Mahout a lot previously, but after that we started using Spark MLib because it's much faster than Mahout. Okay, so that's a high level components that you can learn in Spark. So one is the Spark core. It's important to know the Spark core, how processing is done, but most of the time we're either in these two spaces, Spark SQL and Spark Streaming. Okay, and this is this is actually comparing Spark and MapReduce. So they're trying to show you how Spark is better and how Spark is easier. So I pretty much touched on all these points a little bit. I don't want to go into the depths of speed again because now your efficiency has gone up significantly because you've reduced the okay, this is how a typical Spark program runs. You have a driver which you submit to the cluster and it runs executors. The executors are typically your mappers or like executors, you can't call them as mappers or reducers, but it's pretty much running your map actions in a way. So those are called executors, which is a little bit of a change of a name from MapReduce to Spark, which I'll go in depth. So there are lots of ways of doing it. One is the Amazon EMR, which is the Amazon Elastic MapReduce. So back in the time when Elastic MapReduce didn't have some of the features, we actually had to build it ourselves. But now it's much ahead. So like the clusters that we used to build using Mesos and all that stuff, we don't need to do that anymore. It's just easy to just use Elastic MapReduce in my perspective. So there's a lot more things that can be done. You can actually reduce costs by using spots and lots of things that you can do inside Amazon with Spark. So I will explain to you how different things are done. So one important thing that you need to understand is the resilient distributed data sets. And the reason there is a it's very important is how do you create a data set in memory which is distributed